Okay. Good evening to all. Can you hear me? Someone will please respond. Hello. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. So actually we are in week 11 live session. So I hope you have gone through that week 11 lecture videos and other TA sessions. Okay. So in this session we will discuss about some basic fundamentals about cluster analysis. Okay. Um, the other TAs. Okay. For this cluster analysis, they discussed some Python code related to this clustering. So, so we will see in this session some basic fundamentals about this cluster analysis. Okay. So basically, what is this cluster analysis means? Okay. So you are going to give a set of objects will be there. Okay. So in real time, it may be some data points, or it may be objects, or it may be some kind of images or something. Okay, it may be some videos. Okay, so basically in real time you may have some set of objects is there. So what is our goal is, so our goal is, so you need to group the data points based on some kind of similarity or based on some kind of strategy. You want to use some strategy to group those things. Okay, for example, in this example, okay, you can see there are some different data points. Okay, so it is having three different colors. One is having some red color, another one is having some kind of pink, another one is having sky color. Okay, so what is our intention is, so you want to group all these data points in one cluster. Okay, so I will tell you why do you want to group this data of this means. So we will see in the upcoming slides, we will see the applications where you are going to use this kind of strategies to group it. Okay, so as of now, what is meant by cluster analysis means, okay. So if you have given a set of objects, you need to place them in groups such that those objects, whatever the objects they have given, it will be in a group, okay. So mostly it is based on similarity or a related kind of group. Okay? They can form one group. If there is any variation, that means some other kind of similarity is there means you need to form it into another group. Okay, so like that you can form some groups. These groups we in technically we are going to call it as clusters. Okay, so if you are doing some kind of analysis in this on this data or on this clusters means you may call this as uh, cluster analysis. Okay, now come to here you have some data points. Whenever you are grouping or you are clustering, so always you try to remember 2 points. One is the intra-cluster distances are minimized. Okay, so within the clusters, whatever the data points you are going to have, whatever the objects you are going to have, that is always it will be minimized. Okay, the intra-clusters. Okay, so this is one group. Okay, you may call this one as okay one group. So inside this group, this is one cluster, another cluster. Okay, the round circuits you assume that these are some small clusters. Okay, so you want to form these clusters. Okay, always it should be in minimized manner. Okay, so that is one object. Whenever you are doing grouping, so you may have so many clusters. So inside the grouping, the distance between these clusters are very minimized. Okay, The another objective is you need to form, okay, the interclusters, okay. So the interclusters distance are maximized, okay. For example, we assume that this is one cluster, this is another cluster, okay. The distance between these two clusters will be maximized. This is called interclusters, okay. This is called intra clusters, okay. Intra means within, inter means outside, okay. So you need to maintain these two rules whenever you are doing cluster analysis. Now come to here, okay. Why do you want to study about this cluster analysis? There are different kinds of applications where you are going to use uh, this cluster analysis. Uh, Sir, one minute. I'm in lab, sir. I'll come by after 9. Uh, why, sir? Okay, okay. So, uh, so where you are going to use this kind of cluster analysis, okay? So, for example, mostly if you want to do any kind of information, I mean document retrieval or information retrieval, okay? So you want to do some browsing, like you are doing Google, okay? You want to Google something, you want to get, okay? So whenever you are Googling, in the search box, what you are going to do, you are going to enter your query. Based on you will get a lot of links, right? So what are those links are a kind of clusters, okay? So the first link is more relevant. That is, you may assume that you are going to get a group of clusters, okay? Inside that, you may have different links will be there. There will be some ranking is there, document ranking. Based on that, they will display. If you change your query, okay, if you give one query, you will get a particular group of documents that are relevant to your query. If you modify or if you change your query in Google search box, okay, then what will happen? You will get another set of documents. Okay, that is called, okay. That is called a kind of group of documents. This is a cluster of documents will come if you give one kind of query. Another set of documents will come, okay, if you give or if you modify your Google query, okay. So one application, this is just document retrieval or information retrieval. There are uh, many applications are there where you are going to use cluster analysis, okay. For example, okay, group genes, proteins, okay, that will have some kind of similarity functions, okay. If you take any kind of this biology, okay, bio subject, okay, you may have genes and proteins data, you want to group it properly, or you take any stock data, share market stock data. So all these are, okay, this stock market data, based on few things that share market stock data will change, okay. There will be a lot of price price fluctuations will be there, whether it is high or low, like this it will have, okay. So what do you want to know is, for example, in share market also, I want to buy a shares which is having the share price of between 10 to 20 rupees, or between 100 to 200 rupees, or I want to shares more than 1000 rupees, okay. So whenever you are having such kind of requirement, okay, so what it will do, basically it will identify the stocks between 10 to 20 and it will give that output to you, okay. Similarly, if you are giving the query as like, the stocks more than 1000 rupees, it will identify whatever the prices which will have more than 1000 rupees, it will identify and it will give, okay. So for all those things, the background or the behind technique, what they are going to use it as cluster analysis only, okay. So this is also one of the example. Okay, you may take some country, for example, you want to see something here. Okay, these are different types of clusters. Okay, you are going to mark it like this, right? So these are different kinds of clusters. Or else you take any map, you take India map itself. For example, you want to know in India map. Okay, so where you are going to have an agriculture land, or you want to see where will be the water resource available in Indian map. Okay, so you want to know such kind of things in a visualized manner or graphical manner. Okay, so this cluster analysis will be more useful. Okay, so what is the basic idea behind this cluster analysis means? See, whenever you are doing cluster, okay, basically you are going to have large data set. Okay, you want to analyze some data. So what it will do means it will reduce the size of large, and so instead of going for large data set. Okay, if you are having a kind of groups like that. Okay, so that groups of that groups will be relevant information to you. You just need that particular data. That is enough. Okay, no need to go to entire your data set, or no need to go for all your data. Okay, so this kind of criteria or this kind of applications you can implement by using cluster analysis. Okay, then come to here. Can you observe this one? Okay, there are some data points are there. Can you say someone how many clusters are there based on these things? How many clusters we can form? Or you just assume that these are some data points. Can you able to say based on these things? For example, if I assume data as this is one cluster and this is another cluster, I assume like this. These are two clusters. Some people then assume this is one cluster, this is another cluster, this is another cluster, this is another cluster. This is, okay. Some people they may assume that there will be six clusters are there. Which one is correct? Okay. So here some kind of ambiguity is there. Okay. So to avoid this kind of ambiguity, okay, what you will do is you just always use try to differentiate your data points with different shapes and colors. Okay, so if you are giving your data points, if you are representing your data points like this, now you can able to say, anyone can able to say, okay, so there will be two clusters. This is one kind of clusters which all the data points are having red color with square shape. Okay, this is another kind of clusters. Okay, it's all the data
Uh,
points having.
Sorry, sir, but we can't see the screen which you are showing.
You
Yeah,
can't
now
able to
it's
see my screen.
yeah, now it's better. Now we can.
Oh, okay. Is there anyone is having issue? Can you able to see my screen? Yeah, okay. So I hope everyone can able to see my screen. So if you are having this kind of data points, okay, we can able to see and we can able to. So this is okay. This is two clusters. Okay. Similarly, if you want to form six clusters, so here we have some kind of ambiguity. To avoid that ambiguity, what we are doing is we are trying to form clusters with different colors and different shapes. Okay. If you see here, here we have formed in two clusters. Come to here. Okay. Here we have six clusters. Okay. This particular group we have represented in one shape and one different color. Okay, the other data points we are representing in another shape. Okay, so like this you need to form the clusters. Okay, so this is four clusters. Okay, this is one cluster. See, for example, here these points are having, this is another cluster, third cluster, fourth cluster. Okay, this is how you can able to represent your data in real-time examples. Okay, so if you represent like this, okay, so what will happen? You will get some ambiguity. So always you try to represent your data in a proper manner with different shapes and different colors, so that there will be no ambiguity. You always try to avoid that ambiguity while you are doing clustering. Okay, so then come to clustering. There are different types of clustering techniques available. Okay, so we will see few clustering techniques in this session. Okay, so generally, clusters means a group of object. Clustering means a set of clusters. You call it as clustering. Okay. So I will use mostly clustering word. Clustering means it's a set of clusters. Okay. You have some clusters are there. If you want to represent or if you want to show them a set of clusters, then you can call it as clustering. Okay. So basically, we have hierarchical and partitional. Okay. There are two types majorly. We have two types of clusters. Okay. One is partitional clustering, another one is hierarchical clustering. We will see what is partitional clustering means. So you have data points. What you want to do is partitional. The name itself, you are trying to partition, you want to division of the data objects into non-overlapping subsets or non-overlapping clusters. Okay, so that is called partitional clustering. When you use, okay, hierarchical clustering means, so you want to have a set of nested clusters organized in a hierarchical tree manner. Okay, there will be some kind of tree approach will be there. You can call it as hierarchical clustering. Okay, so we will see this is partitional clustering. The same, okay, you have some data points here. These are, okay, all these data points are your original data points. Okay, now what we are doing is we are trying to partition. This is one partition, this is another partition. All these data points are like that. I have partitioned. Okay, so if you are partitioning like this, okay, so partition is nothing but this is one cluster, another cluster, and another cluster. Okay, here I have three clusters are there. So if you are doing partitioning like this, okay, you may call it as partitional clustering. Okay, actually these are the your original data points. These are your partitional clusterings. Okay, so how you can do this partition means the upcoming sessions we will see based on what strategy you are trying to say it is one cluster or it is another cluster, it is one cluster. Okay, there are different techniques are there like k-means clustering and you already seen. Okay, so based on those things we are trying to partition it. Hierarchical means there are different kinds of hierarchical clustering will be there. So if you see this diagram, these are different kinds of data points. So if you are representing like this your data points, okay, this is called traditional hierarchical clustering. Or if you are representing like this is called traditional dendrogram. Okay, so the shape is dendrogram. Please try to remember. This is traditional dendrogram. This is non-traditional dendrogram. This is traditional hierarchical clustering. This is non-traditional hierarchical clustering. Okay, so based on this hierarchical clustering, we can able to say, okay, these are different types of hierarchical clustering will be available. Okay, so next one is, so what we will see, what is the distinction between these clusters. Okay, so whenever, so the distinction between these set of clusters are, okay, so if you are having, okay, sometimes you may have some exclusive data points and non-exclusive data points. Okay, so you may have exclusive versus non-exclusive kind of data will be there. So if you are having non-exclusive clustering, okay, what is meant by non-exclusive clustering means point may belong to multiple clusters. Okay, so exclusive means all the data points are belong to that particular cluster.
Sorry again to interrupt, but again we are stuck on the screen which says notion of cluster. The screen is not moving on the laptop, I think. You were referring to the types of clusters?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
can
mean,
you
I
able to
couldn't
see
see.
exclusive versus and non-exclusive?
The chat is not available. Also, we can't raise a hand.
Uh,
So now I can see
Chart is not available.
chat is unavailable, isn't available. We can't chat,
Oh, is
and
it?
we can't even raise our hand. Also, now I
Okay.
can see other distinction between sets of cluster. Is this the screen?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
This
now
is
I can
the.
see the screen because before I could
Uh,
see only the Notion screen.
yeah. Can you please someone? Can you please? Other people will respond. Can you able to see my screen or not? I don't know. Maybe the problem is from my side or your side.
I mean, I can see the
Actually,
screen, but every time you're referring to the part which you're talking about, I
hmm,
can't see that slide. It's still stuck on the previous slide only. It's like that.
okay.
Now I can see this one, the other distinctions.
Now, what's which slide? You can see
Types of clusters.
now fine, right? Uh,
Yeah, this is again right.
mm, okay, then I will explain like this. Mm, okay, maybe there may be some issue, maybe there.
Mhm. Also, if we
Mm,
can just increase the like zoom in the screen because the reading through
yeah,
this thing is becoming very
actually,
difficult.
it's okay
Yeah.
now.
Okay. Okay.
Actually, I explained by using full screen only, but you are saying that the screen is not moving, maybe some technical issue. So anyhow, we will continue like this. Can you able to see the slide now, right?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Mm, okay. So these are okay. So you may have again okay. There will be some distinctions between a set of clusters. Okay. Whatever the data objects or data points you are getting, that will be exclusive versus non-exclusive. Uh, Exclusive in the sense means whatever the data points, it may be belongs to the same cluster. Non-exclusive in the sense means okay, the points may belong to multiple clusters, not only belongs to single cluster. Okay, so that kind of data you are going to call it as non-exclusive data. Okay, so it can be belong to so multiple classes, or you may say it as multiple clusters. Okay, so the another thing is fuzzy clustering. Okay, what is this fuzzy clustering means? This is one type of non-exclusive clustering. So in fuzzy clustering, the data points belongs to every cluster with some weight. The weight generally it will varies between 0 and 1. Okay. So whenever you want to sum up these weights, okay, all the sum must be uh, sum sum it up to 1. Then again, what is the distinction between these set of clusters? Means there is another distinction also. One is exclusive and non-exclusive versus data. Another one is partial versus complete. Okay. So what is this partial versus complete means? In some cases, what will happen is we will only want to cluster only some of the data. So you don't want to cluster all the data. In some cases, you want to group only some of the data. Okay, in such cases, you want to call that clustering as a kind of partial clustering, not complete clustering. Okay, because you are using only some of the data, not all the data. Okay, so that is about the distinction between set of clusters. Then come to types of clusters. Okay, so you already know clustering means you want to group of the objects. Okay, so there will be different types of clusters also there. Okay, so what are those different types of clusters means? One is well separated clusters, another one is prototype based clusters, third one is contiguity based clusters, fourth one is density based clusters. Then described by an objective functions, you can describe okay with the help of some objective functions. You can describe okay. So those are different types of clusters. We will see one by one what is well separated cluster. Okay. So the first one is well separated cluster. So this is clusters. Okay. Here we have three different clusters with three different colors with circle shape. Okay. So what is this well separated cluster means? A cluster is a set of points such that any point in a cluster closer to every other points in the cluster than to any point not in the cluster. Okay. So this is cluster. Inside this cluster, you may have several data points. So all these data points, all are closer to uh, inside this cluster. All the data points are closer to it. Okay. So closer, or you may call it as similar kind of data points. Okay. So but when it comes to this cluster, okay, so this will be having, it is not closer. Okay, whatever the data point present here, so this is more far. Okay, this is called a separation. So you have some separation will be there between this cluster and this cluster. So if you are doing a clusters like this, okay, you may call this as well separated clusters. There will be no confusion. This cluster is clear, this cluster is clear, this cluster is clear. All these clusters are separated in a nice manner. Okay. So in upcoming slides we can see okay some other clusters. Then there you may get okay some not those clusters are not separated. I mean it's not well separated clusters. We have clusters We may call those things or those data points, we may call it as clusters, but they are not well separated clusters. I will tell you at the time, okay? So the next one is another type of clusters will be prototype based clusters. So what is this prototype based cluster means? Similarly, okay. So previously whatever we have seen, okay, a cluster is a set of objects such that an object in a cluster is closer to the prototype or center, okay. So center of the cluster than to the center of any other cluster, okay. So this is a kind of prototype based clustering. Here what will happen is, so this previously you have seen there will be some separation, long separation is there. But if you are saying prototype based clustering means you no need to worry about that well separation and all in this example. What you are going to worry about is whether your center of that particular cluster is properly presented or properly prototyped or not. Okay. If it is properly prototyped, okay, then you are going to call it as prototype based cluster, okay. So generally the center of the clusters, it is going to form based on the centroid, okay. Centroid, that is the average of all the data points in the cluster, okay. So that is centroid, or you may use, okay, sometimes instead of going for the average of all the data points in the cluster, sometimes people may use medoid also, either centroid. What is that medoid in the sense is the most representative point of that particular cluster. There will be some point will be that will be most represented one. Generally, whenever you are doing clustering, most of the times people will follow centroid only. What they will do is they are going to take all the points present inside this particular cluster. They are going to take average of all the points and they can form some centroid. Okay, maybe few applications you are going to depend on some kind of medoid, that is the most representative point or most representative cluster. Okay, so, this will be another type of cluster, that is prototype based, okay. Now come to here, okay, this is continuity, or you may call it as continuity based cluster. See this continuity cluster, the diagrams itself, okay. So each and every color, okay, this is one cluster, another cluster, third cluster, okay, fourth cluster, fifth cluster, sixth cluster, seventh. So here we have 8 clusters are there. Each and every color representation will show, okay. What is this continuous cluster means? A cluster is a set of points such that a point in a cluster is closer to one or more other points in the cluster than to any other point not in the cluster, okay. That is the meaning of, you just based on this observation you can say, okay, this is a kind of continuous clusters. You may have so many data points, this they have formed like this. Again, a density based cluster. So this is, okay, based on dense region of points they will form it, okay. So here you may have, this is one cluster, another cluster, another cluster, 1 2 3 4 5 6, here we have 6 clusters, okay. So this, so these are different types of clusters, okay. So the next one is objective function, okay. So what you will do is, you, if you want, you can define your own objective function, okay. Instead of going for centroid based or medoid based techniques, what you will do is, so you try to form clusters based on your objective function. You can define your own objective function, okay. You just find that cluster, okay, maximize or minimize the objective function. You just use some technique to form your own clusters, okay. So that may have, okay, either you go for global objectives or local objective, anything is fine. You just, okay, this is kind of customized clustering. You want to form a cluster based on your requirement, okay. That is called objective function based clustering, okay. So these are different types of clusters. Whatever we have seen up to now, those are the different types of clusters. Then come to the characteristics of the data. Okay, okay. These are the clusters, you know, but you need to see what kind of data you are getting. If you want to form a cluster, you need to know what kind of data we are getting, right? For example, if we will get any relevant data or some exceptional data, some missing data, something is there. Your data is not clear, okay, then how you will form the cluster, okay. So we will see some characteristics of that input data, okay, how this input data is more important to while you are doing cluster analysis, okay. So the first characteristic is type of proximity or density measure, okay. So that is the central to clustering. Again, this type of proximity is depends on the data and applications. Okay. The second characteristic is the second characteristic is okay. The second one is you may have data characteristics that affect proximity and density, like dimensionality, attribute type. Okay, special relationship in the data. Okay, distribution of the data. You need to observe those things. So that will be the next characteristic. The third one is you need to identify is there any noise or any outliers are there. Okay. For example, you have data points 1, 2, 3, 4 like that, but there is a one point it is coming with 1 lakh value. All your data points are between 1 to 100, but there is a one data point or one particular thing, it will come with 1 lakh or 10,000. You can say that 10,000 data points or 1 lakh data point, you can consider it as outliers. Okay, based on that particular data point, you don't form the center, because if you are forming with the help of that data points, okay, then your cluster, okay, will not be not good cluster, okay. So that's why sometimes you need to avoid or you need to remove those outliers, okay. So the next one is these clusters having different sizes and densities and different shapes, okay. So there is no fixed size of the cluster and there is no fixed shape of the clusters. It may have any type and any size, okay. Then come to clustering algorithm. Uh, Up to now, whatever you have seen, that is basic funda about clustering analysis. So now we will see few algorithms. So the first clustering algorithm is k-means, and this k-means again may have some variations. Okay, k-means how you are going to compute the k value and centroid value. Okay, you may have k-means plus plus also. Okay, so those are different variations. First we will see k-means and its k-means variance algorithms. Then we will see the next clustering algorithm will be hierarchical clustering, then density based clustering. Okay. So what is this k-means clustering is? Okay. So I think you already know mean means the average value. Okay. You already know these things. Okay. You may have so many data points. Mean means the average value. K means okay the number of clusters. Okay. The K is the number of clusters. That value will be, you need to specify that value. Okay. So K means clustering means okay. First, whenever you want to do k-means clustering, you need to partition the clusters. Okay, you need to go. The approach for k-means clustering is partitional approach. Then you need to specify the k value. That is number of clusters you want to form. Okay, so you may have lot of data. With the help of that data, how many clusters you want to form? You need to specify that k value. Then each cluster is associated with some technique. Generally, people will use centroid value. If you want, you can use midoid also, or if you want to go for your own criteria, you may give your customized function or customized object function. Okay, so that each cluster is associated with centroid value. Generally, this is generally I am telling. The standard way is they will take centroid. Okay, then each point is assigned to the cluster with the closest centroid. Okay, so then the basic algorithm is very simple. Okay, this is the algorithm. Okay, so select k points as the initial centroids. Okay, so you are going to select the initial k value. Okay, and initial centroids, k points as the initial centroids. Then what you will do is from each cluster you need to assign the points based on that closest centroid. Okay, so for example, I have two data points. So there is another point is coming up with, okay, I have one. You need to test the difference distance between these 2 points. Okay, generally people use some kind of Euclidean distance to find out which data point is closer or which one is near to that particular centroid. Okay, so you may use any kind of distance technique to identify or to point out the nearest data point. Then you can form, okay, if one particular data point is near, then you can form those 2 points as one group. You can repeat this procedure, okay. So until where you are going to stop this k-means clustering, there will be some stop criteria, there will be some end criteria, right? So where you are going to stop it means whenever your centroid is not changing, so you have formed a cluster. If the centroid is not changing, then you have done, okay. You have formed the clusters, okay. That is your final step, that is your end step of your algorithm. So this is the basic k-means clustering algorithm. You can do like this, okay. We will see one example, okay. So this is, here we have so many data points. In this example, okay, after iteration 6, you can see this colored points, okay. This is one cluster. This cross mark, you are seeing some kind of plus symbol, right? This is centroid, okay. This is centroid. Here also this is centroid. So here also this is, okay. Here we have 3 clusters, okay. For example, how this after iteration 6, after 6 iterations only you can form the clusters like this. See, if you see, come to here, the algorithm, how the k-means algorithm or k-means clustering will work means, for example, the first iteration, you may have data points like this. See, if you observe here, okay, this cluster points, okay, here so many data points are there, okay. So how you are going to form this centroid? Each and every iteration, okay, you see the change in those, okay, they are going to form this as one cluster, and the change in that points, the color changing, okay. So these points are wide spreading. The centroid also, this particular centroid is coming to this one cluster, this is coming to this particular cluster, okay. Here we are going each and every iteration, so it will form like this, okay. At the final iteration, so here we have 3 clusters, okay. So like this k-means clustering will work. This is one simple example how it will work, okay. So when it comes to some more details about this k-means clustering means, okay, this algorithm is a simple iterative algorithm. Initially it will choose some centroids, then it will repeat the steps, it will compute the centroid between new data points and already existing centroid, okay. So it will recompute those centroids and it will form. So whenever there is no change in the centroid, you will stop this one, okay. There is no cluster change, okay. So this is initial centroids are often chosen. Initially you want to choose one centroid. That centroid will be chosen randomly, okay, because the initial value you don't know which one is the centroid. Initially I am assuming here also, actually they are assuming the centroid is here, one centroid is here, another one is here, another one is here. But whenever they are working with, okay, the centroid values keep on coming this side, this direction, this coming this direction, okay. Initially they assumed that the centroid, 3 centroids are there here, but after several iterations, the centroids are coming to here, okay. So this will be about k-means clustering. The initial centroids are often chosen randomly. Clusters produced, okay. Whatever the clusters you are going to produce, it may vary from one run. One run means one iteration, okay, or one loop. After one iteration or one loop, the clusters will vary in terms of size, in terms of centroid, in terms of data points also, okay. So that is more details about clustering. If you want to talk about what is the complexity of this particular k-means clustering, okay. So we can say in terms of computational complexity will be order of n into k into I into d, okay. What is this n mean? Order of number of data points, that is n means number of data points, k means number of clusters, I means number of iterations you are performing, d means the number of attributes you are doing, okay. So whenever if someone will ask what is the complexity of k-means clustering means, you need to say like this: order of n into k into I into d. N means number of data points, k means number of clusters, I means number of iterations, d means number of attributes. Okay, so you need to say like this. So, the next one is what is the main objective for this k means clustering means. Okay, so the main common objective for this k-means clustering is, okay, I told you you want to compute some distance between 2 points. Okay, so the 2 points distance can be measured with the help of Euclidean distance. That Euclidean distance, okay, you can measure it. Then what you want to do is you need to sum of that square. Okay, always your objective function is sum of squared error is minimal or it will be less. Okay, so that is our key objective for k means objective function. Okay, so this is the mathematical representation for to get if you want to get sum of squared error, so you can represent distance square of m comma x. Okay, so that m means centroid. Okay, x means the data points, x is the data point, m is centroid. Okay, so you can see here, okay, x is a data point. Okay, in cluster, a particular cluster ci means you may have several number of clusters. I will represent 1 to n number of clusters. Okay, so always you try to minimize that sum of squared error. If you want to do, you can do or you can repeat so many iterations until you reach to your global or local minimum. Okay, so this will be our k means objective function. Okay, then come to here. In this example, we have two different k means clusterings are there. The same previously, whatever the data we have given, this is your original data point. So here we have green, red, and blue. Okay, here also. Okay, this is optimal clustering. Optimal means this is one cluster, this is another cluster, this is another. Like previous example, whatever you have seen. Okay, if you want to go for some suboptimal, this one is optimal. This is the best clustering. Again, if you want to go for some more detail or you want to form some more cluster here, you can form it. Okay, this is okay. This is having have 4 clusters. Here we have 3 clusters. So this is also a kind of suboptimal clustering. Okay, so I think you already know what is meant by optimal. Okay, optimal means the best. Okay, or the best possible choice. Okay, whenever you are doing suboptimal means there are few cases. Okay, because these, if you do like this, okay, there may be some advantages there. Okay, if you do suboptimal, there may be some advantages there in your real-time applications. Okay, so this kind of clustering will be suboptimal clustering. So come to here again. Okay, this suboptimal also you can do in different ways. Okay, this is one centroid. Okay, or one cluster. This is another cluster. This is another cluster. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, there are different ways you can do it. Okay, again, like previous example, it will work like this. It will repeat the number of iterations. Based on that, it will repeat. Okay, so now we will see what is the importance of choosing that initial centroid. Okay, so entire your k-means clustering will be is going to depend on based on your initial centroid. Okay, for example, I have some centroid. Okay, this is my, I am going to assume it the initial centroid as this point. Okay, data A. So what you will do is you want to form something. Okay, you want to merge these two things or you want to merge these two things. Okay, so you can do like this. But what will happen is whenever you are choosing this initial centroid, okay, you need to choose that initial point, right? So the problem with selecting initial point is a crucial step in k-means clustering. Suppose if you did not choose properly the initial point, okay, then what will happen is in real time your cluster, you may get some kind of odd clusters. Sometimes you won't get proper cluster values. Okay, so that's why always you need to take care of for choosing the initial point is very crucial. So if you want to know how to choose that initial point, you can, okay, that is P, okay. So that is the initial point. You can use this particular formula. The number of ways to select one centroid from each cluster divided by number of ways to select k centroids, okay. So that is how you can able to compute the initial point. Based on this, you may choose it, okay. Then come to here, these are different types of cluster examples, okay. This is one cluster, another cluster, okay. Starting with uh, two initial centroids in one cluster of each pair of clusters, okay. What will happen is, here you may have, this is one cluster, another cluster, so see here, okay. So these are different types of clusters. You can see, you can represent in different manner. So this is first iteration. When it is in first iteration, you can see here the data points, okay, yellow data points and the yellow data points. Here also blue is just here somewhat blue and red data points are actually these red data points are belongs to some other clusters, okay. After next iterations, okay, what will happen is these clusters are changing, okay. The data points, whatever the same similar kind of data is there, it is forming as one group or one cluster, okay. So this will repeat, okay, these iterations will repeat until there is no change in the centroid, okay. It will repeat it and it will form these clusters, okay. So what is the biggest problem or what is the limitation in k-means clustering is, so the first limitation is choosing the initial centroid is one problem, okay, right. You don't know how to choose that initial centroid because all your k-means clustering is going to depend on uh, the choosing on initial centroid value, okay. So here we have that kind of limitations. That's why there is another strategy we can come up with to avoid that particular problem. That is k-means plus plus. It is a kind of robust way for doing selection of initial centroid, okay. So we have another technique will be there, that is k-means plus plus clustering, okay. The solution for this selecting initial centroid value is to just to go, instead of going for k-means clustering, you just prefer k-means plus plus. It will select based on the robust way. It will select that initial centered, okay. So we will see the steps involved in this k-means plus plus, okay. So this approach can be it may be a little bit slower than k-means, but it will give the results, okay. It will produce that results in a consistent manner, okay. At the same time, you are going to get a very less some squared error, okay. So that's why you can prefer k-means plus plus algorithm. It will give guarantee, okay. You can able to compute the time complexity of this particular algorithm will be order of log k. If you go for k-means algorithm, the computation or the complexity will be order of n into, we already seen, okay, n into k into I into d, okay. If you go for this k-means, it just requires, okay, order of log k, okay. So to select a set of initial centroid, you need to follow these steps. The first step will be select an initial point at randomly to be the first centroid, okay. So after that, okay, you need to do these steps, okay. For each of the n points, you may have n points. Find the minimum square distance between the currently selected centroids, okay. Uh, and that will be, you need to go for minimalized distance, okay. Minimum distance between that centroid and x data point, okay. Then after that, okay, up to this k means also same. After that, what we are doing is we are trying to include this steps. Randomly select a new centroid by choosing a data point with probability proportional to min d square, okay, this cluster comma data point divided by sum of min distance that centroid comma data point, okay. So this particular step is new in k-means plus plus. Okay, so if you are using k-means plus plus, so it will take less time, and at the same time you will get better clusters. Okay, so this is another variation in k-means, that is bisecting k-means algorithm. Here also the initial steps are same. Okay, that bisecting k-means, this is another variant of k-means algorithm. What it will do is it can produce a partitional hierarchical clustering. The steps are same. Okay, initially you need to select the clusters. After that you need to repeat these steps. Only these steps. Okay, bisect the selected clusters using basic k-means. Okay, uh, you are going to add, okay, this in this bisecting k-means algorithm, add the two clusters from the bisections with the lowest SEE to the list of clusters. Okay, only variation is you need to include this particular step. Okay, so that will be the bisecting k-means algorithm. So the overall limitations of k-means, okay, k-means has so many problems. Okay, when clusters have different sizes, this is one limitation. Okay, the clusters may have different densities. At the same time, they may have non-globular shapes. Okay, so these are having some kind of problems. Okay, in k-means algorithm. So k-means has problems when you have any kind of outlier data. Okay, whenever you are having some kind of outlier data, again this having some limitations. Okay, so that's why we are moving to other kind of clustering technique. So that is, we will go for hierarchical tricking. Okay, we have, these are the some limitations, like different sizes of clusters are there. Okay, different densities and non-globular shapes. Okay, what is this? Okay, see, these are the different sizes of clusters. This is one cluster size, another cluster size, another cluster size. Here also. Okay, this is the one issue. Another issue is differing densities. Okay, so the density, these data points are, okay. So if you observe this diagram, here the data points are very close. Okay, the density is very high. If you take this cluster, this kind of some kind of scattered points, okay, the density is very less. Okay, that's why this is also another issue or another limitation in k-means. Non-globular shapes means, see here, this is one cluster, this is another cluster. Okay, actually these are your original points. If you want to form cluster by using this original data points, see how it forms. If you are using k-means algorithm, this is your original data. You applied k-means algorithm for this original data. See how your cluster looks like. Okay, so this is one cluster and this is another cluster. Okay, so if you observe this one, this is very odd, right? So this is also having some problem, or we may say it has some limitation. Okay, so that's why, to overcome all these k-means limitations, okay, what you want to do is you want to um, go for some other technique, that is hierarchical clustering. Okay, so what is this hierarchical clustering? Okay, it will produce nested clusters. Okay, you see here, this is in initial also we have discussed, this is dendrogram diagram. Can you please someone say what kind of dendrogram it is? It is traditional or non-traditional dendrogram? Can you remember these diagrams? Someone will respond in chat also. What kind of dendrogram it is? You can, it is traditional dendrogram or non-traditional dendrogram. See, don't you remember? You just see here the same. Okay. See this diagram and this diagram. Okay. Now you can say what kind of dendrogram it is. So it look like,
It's additional.
yeah, traditional dendrogram. Okay. So this is, you may use, okay, dendrograms, or you may use, okay, I already told initial slides itself. You can go for either traditional hierarchical clustering or dendrogram. This is direct representation of traditional hierarchical representation. This is dendrogramical representation. Both are, you can use both kind, both in hierarchical clustering. Okay, so this dendrogram is a kind of a tree-like diagram that records the sequence of merges or splits. Okay, but when it comes to here, this is kind of not tree shape. This is kind of cluster shape only. But inside on clusters, you may have some subclusters. Okay, what is the strength of this hierarchical cluster means? So in K-means algorithm, you are going to you don't have initial value, or you don't have initial centroid. Okay, you are going to select it initially randomly, or you are going to assume, yeah, this is my centroid, like that. Okay, so if you are taking hierarchical clustering, you don't have to assume any particular number of clusters. Okay, uh, like a value or initial centroid, you don't need to do those things. Okay, that is the one strength of this hierarchical cluster. Any desired number of clusters can be obtained, okay, by cutting the dendrogram. If you want to increase the cluster size, okay, you just cut the dendrogram shape, you just include it, okay, at the proper level. Okay, whether you want to use in bottom level, or you want to go for somewhat middle level or high level. Okay, so that is the another advantage. Okay, if you are using hierarchical clustering. So most of these, okay, where you are going to use this kind of clustering, in which applications you are going to mean. So whenever you are having that biological sciences, or any kind of animal kingdom, or sorry, any kind of restriction. Okay. So if you are having any taxonomy or any hierarchical things will be there. Okay. You can choose this hierarchical clustering will be the best one. Okay. Even in academy also, you may have some hierarchical, I mean, different designations and different roles and responsibilities will be there. So in such cases, okay, what you will do is you need to go for this hierarchical clustering only. Okay, in academy also you may have assistant professor, associate professor, okay, then professor Hogg, dean, okay, like that. Okay, this is kind of hierarchy, director or principal, something like that. Okay, so if you are having such kind of data, or you want to show it in different way, different taxonomy, you need to prefer hierarchical clustering. Then again, okay, we are going to divide this hierarchical clustering into this having two ways. One is agglomerative, another one is divisive. Okay, so what is this agglomerative means? Okay, agglomerative means already you have some partitions. Okay, uh, you need to merge it. You need to combine it. Okay, that is agglomerative means what it will do is basically it is going to aggregate it. Okay, aggregate, and it will sum it up to something. Okay, division means you have aggregative nature, you want to divide it to smaller things. Okay, so that is agglomerative is it will starts with the points as individual clusters. At each step they are going to merge, okay, the closest pairs of clusters until only one cluster or k clusters left. Okay, so that will be the agglomerative clustering. Division means it will start with one all-inclusive cluster. At each step, it will split that cluster. Okay, so this is completely inverse of this agglomerative. Okay, the traditional hierarchical algorithms use similarity and distance matrices. Whenever you want to merge or you want to split one cluster at a time, you are going to depend on again this distance matrix or similarity matrices. Okay, so we will see the algorithm for agglomerative clustering. The key idea for this agglomerative clustering is you need to merge the closest clusters. Okay, that is successfully merge the closest clusters. The basic algorithm is first you need to compute the proximity matrix. Okay, so you may have some data points. Okay, let each data point be a cluster. Initially, you may assume each data points itself, you may assume if you want data points itself, it is one cluster. Okay, then repeat, merge the two closest clusters. Two closest clusters in the sense means the two data points. Okay, then update that proximity matrix, whatever the matrix you are going to compute, you update it until only single clusters remains. Okay, at the final outcome, okay, after you are merging each and everything, at the end what you will get only one cluster. Okay, so this is the key operation which you are going to do in agglomerative clustering algorithm. So we will see the another one also. The next one is, so if you want, we will see it one example. Okay, see here I have some data points. Okay, start with clusters of individual data points and proximity matrix. You may assume that this is my proximity matrix. Okay, P1, P2, P3, P4, P5. Okay, so these are my proximity matrix. These are data points. Okay, we will see after merging. Okay, initially whatever the points you are seeing. Okay, that you just assume that this C1 is like P1 only. You want to consider this initial data point as one centroid, centroid 1, centroid 2, centroid 3, centroid 4. Okay, this is my proximity matrix. So like this. Okay, P1, P2 or C1, C2. You want to merge these two things, you can form one cluster. You want to merge these two things, you can form another cluster. Okay, so like this you can merge it. Here also these are different ways. Okay, you can merge and combine it. So finally what will happen at the end, so these two one group like this. Okay, C2 union C5. Okay, like this you can combine it. So how to define the next one is, okay, how to define the intercluster distance. So you have, okay, in this example, okay, previously also you have two clusters are there. How to define this intercluster distance? Okay, there are different ways you can able to represent based on mean value, based on maximum value, based on group average value, based on distance between the centroids. You can define this intercluster distance. Okay, so intercluster distance means, intra means within the cluster, inter means this is one cluster and this is another cluster. You want to define some distances between these three things. Okay, one will be based on minimum. That is, okay, these two, but this is one cluster. Inside this cluster, we may have one point. This is another cluster, we may have another point. Okay, based on minimum means you just observe all the data points that is present in this cluster and observe the data points that is present in this cluster. Okay, so only these 2 points based on mean criteria. If you are using mean criteria to compute similarity, okay, these two data points having more. Okay, that is minimum distance which is having. If you want to use for max criteria in between these two clusters, this data point and this data point having max. Okay, uh, that is similarity means you are just depending on one approach or one criteria. Similarity is nothing but it's you are using some thing. Okay, some criteria to form a group. Okay, that criteria is, it may be mean based on minimum distance, based on maximum distance, or it may be average. Okay, so group average means again, okay, you just take that group and you can take that average, or you want to give some other similarity criteria, that is distance between centroids. Okay, this cluster having some centroid and this cluster having some centroid. Okay, so based on this centroid. Okay, this is the another criteria. Okay, distance between centroids. Okay, so then there will be, if you want to give your own customized objective functions, you may use that also. Okay, so like this you can compute those distances and you can come up with this distance matrix or proximity matrix. Okay, so I'm just giving a few basic idea about this intercluster similarity, because all these things are discussed in NPTEL video lecture also, how you can form this distance matrix or proximity matrix. Uh, okay, this is the distance matrix for this example. Okay. The next one is you may see, okay, if you are having a clusters like this, so this is one cluster. Inside you may have another clusters. Okay, so if you are having a clusters like this, you may call this is as nested clusters. Okay, so see, these are the some of the strengths. This is your original data points. If you are using this hierarchical clustering, you can form 6 clusters like this. Okay, this is one cluster, another cluster, okay, another cluster, another cluster, another cluster. Okay, these are 6 clusters. But if you use k-means here, instead of going for hierarchical clustering, if you use k-means, then what will happen is you may get clusters. This may be one cluster, okay. This may be another cluster, or this may be another cluster like this. Okay, if see the change in cluster shape. So mostly this kind of hierarchical clustering, okay. So it can handle any kind of shapes, even non-elliptical shapes also it can handle it, okay. So not only circle or elliptical things. If you are using hierarchical clustering, means the cluster may be any shape, even elliptical or circular, or it can handle non-elliptical thing also, okay. So this is the one thing, the that minimum, if you are going for hierarchical clustering similarity thing based on minimum, what is the limitation if you are using that minimum similarity? So these are your original data points. So what is the limitation if you are going for minimum similarity or minimum proximity or minimum distance matrix means? For example, these are 2 clusters. You see here, these are 3 clusters. Okay. So sometimes what will happen is your data is very sensitive, or you are sensitive to noise. What is that noise means? See here, there is a data point, okay, it's having some other thing, okay. I mean, this data point is not belongs to this cluster and this cluster and this cluster, okay. This is called like a sensitive or a kind of noise, okay. So that is the one issue if you are going for minimum distance, because this point is more distant from this cluster. At the same time, this particular data point is very far distance for this cluster. At the same time, this cluster, okay. But we are using minimum distance as criteria. This data point is not belongs to any of these clusters. Then you can say it as a kind of noise, okay. Whenever you are taking minimum as criteria, you may get such kind of issues, okay. So that's why you can go for another approach, that is max, or this is okay. This minimum we can also call it as like single link. Uh, this another thing is that max, whatever the approach you have in max, okay. That is, you can call it as complete linkage. Previously it is single linkage. The next is you may call it as complete linkage. The explanation for this max, okay, everything is similar to like min only. It will form like this, okay. So these are a brief about hierarchical clustering. So this group, okay. So next what we will see is we will discuss about this thing, okay. What is the time and space requirements for this hierarchical clustering means, okay. The order of n square will be the space, okay, the space requirement for this hierarchical clustering. When it comes to time, okay, so order of n cube will be, okay. So where n will be the number of points, okay. You just keep these things will be mine, okay. Mm, so that is about hierarchical clustering. And what are the problems and limitations of, again in this clustering also, okay, each and every clustering technique, they have their pros and they have their cons. Again, this hierarchical clustering also have some problems and limitations, okay. So what is that problem means, okay. Once a decision is made to combine 2 clusters, okay. For example, hierarchical, I said and there will be some agglomerative clustering will be there. You want to combine two clusters, right? So once the decision is made, okay, it cannot be undone, okay. You can't able to do undo, right? That is the one issue whenever you use this hierarchical problem. And another problem is, okay, no global objective function is directly minimized, okay. And there will be other problems also there. Different schemes have problems with one or more of the following. Some may have sensitivity noise, some may have difficulty handling clusters of different sizes and non-globular shapes, okay. Some may have breaking the large clusters, okay. So these are some issues, okay. Some problems and limitations that are present in hierarchical clustering. So that's why what we are doing, we are going for with another approach or another clustering technique, that is density based clustering. Here the clusters are regions of high density that are separated from one another, okay, by regions, okay. You observe, these are your data points, okay. Can you say which one is low density or which one is high density, okay. If we see some kind of thick, okay, some kind of data points which are very, very closer, okay, you may call this one as high density, high density clusters or high density data points. These are some low density points, okay. So these are the clusters, okay. They have some regions with data points with high density, okay. Then inside this high density, um, some clustering will be DBSCAN, okay. So DBSCAN is a density based algorithm, okay. So density means the number of points within the specified radius, okay. You are going to specify some radius within the specified region. The number of points are present. You may call it as density. Suppose you have a point, okay, that is called core point. If it at least have specified number of points, okay, that is min points with EPS, okay. So you may have some terminology. One is min points, okay. Another one is EPS. Sometimes you may call it as radius, okay, the specified radius. So these are the points that are at the interior of cluster. Okay, you need to count the points itself. Okay, there are different points also there, border point and noise point. What is the border point means? Border point is not core point. So, but it is in the neighborhood of that core point. Okay, noise point is any point that is not the core point or border point. You may call it as noise point. We will see what is this border point or core point and noise point based on this diagram. Okay, so so DBSCAN is basically density based scanning. Okay. So based on the density means you already know the number of points that are present. Okay. In this example, see here there are some points are there. Okay. 1, 2. Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. These are different clusters or in a kind of similar points. So here we have minimum 7 points are there. You may call these points as minimum point 7. The radius between this, okay, this is called EPS points. What is noise point means, okay? So these are the noise points, okay? Inside whatever the data is present, okay, this core point. Core point means these points are belongs to this particular cluster. What is the border point means, okay? See here, these points are belongs to B, at the same time these points are belongs to A. Okay? You may call these are border points. It will be present in this border and this border. Okay, you may call this as border point. Okay, so that is the difference between noise point, border point, and core point. Okay, so then we will see this example. Okay, these are your original points. Come to here. You see all the green points are your core points based on this previous example, and your border points will look like in blue color. Noise points will be like this. Okay, so this will be your noise point. The red color will represent noise point. So the minimum number of points 4 and EPS will be 10. EPS means radius. Okay, they have given a criteria like this to form this DBSCAN based clustering. They are using the criteria is like this. If you change this EPS and minimum, then the shapes may change. Okay, so this is the basic algorithm how this DBSCAN algorithm works. Okay, from clusters using core points and assign border points to one of its neighboring clusters. Okay, first, okay, whenever you are using this DBSCAN algorithm, the first step is you need to label all the points. Okay, whether that particular points are core point, border point, or noise point. Then the second step is if there is any noise points are there, you need to eliminate those noise points. Then third one is you need to put an edge between all core points within the distance EPS, like previously you have seen the example. Okay, you need to put that edge EPS of each other. Okay, the fourth step is make each group of connected core points into a separate cluster. Okay, then the last point is you need to assign each border point to one of the clusters and its associated core points. These are the steps other in DBSCAN. Based on these steps, this DBSCAN clustering will work. Okay, so when this DBSCAN is going to work very well means, okay, so for example you have your original points here, you see here, okay, your clusters. Okay, there are so many clusters. When this particular kind of clustering will work very well means, so it can handle if you want to have, I mean, if you want to handle your clusters in different shapes and sizes, okay, then this kind of DBSCAN is very good. Okay, you need to opt for this kind of DBSCAN clustering. Okay, so at the same time you want to remove or you want to reduce your noise. Okay, then you can choose this DBSCAN clustering approach. Okay, so at the same time, you have seen in which case you are going to, or this DB scan works well. You can see in which case this DB scan does not work well. Okay. So for example, see here, this is your original data points. If you are having a data like this, okay, then it won't work well. Okay. So based on this observation itself, you can say it right. So if you are having a very, I mean, this density is different, this density is different, this is different. Again, you have some other densities. Okay, all these data points having different densities. If you are having varying densities with different regions, okay, at the same time, if you are having any high dimensional data means if you are having low dimensional data, it may work well. If you are having any high dimensional data, so it won't work well. Okay, so you need to remember these points whenever you are using DBSCAN. Okay, so I hope that knowledge is enough. Uh, so to understand more about these clustering techniques, okay. So I think all this clustering, whatever we have discussed, K-means or DBSCAN, okay, that is density based or hierarchical clustering, or these are a kind of unsupervised, okay, unsupervised models. Okay, initially you no need to train or you no need to give any labels. Okay, you are going to have your data points, so the algorithm itself, it will give your clusters. Okay, so this is unsupervised clustering models. Okay, so with this I will conclude my session. If you are having any questions,
Yeah, in the hierarchical clustering, there was a bunch of different algorithms, like there was minimum, maximum, and all those. So, which is the best one among those?
again we can't say which one is best. uh, I because it depends on your application or what kind of how you want to form your clusters. It depends on your requirements. Okay, so you want to choose the appropriate one. Okay, we can't say directly Milmi is the best one. Okay, even though this clustering itself, okay, See, you already seen there will be a lot of pros and cons are there. Okay, there will be problems are there, limitations are there. Uh, Based on this thing, what kind of data you are getting? If you do minimum, you just observe how your clusters are forming. If you do maximum, then you visualize how your clusters are forming. If you do average, then you can observe, you visualize how your clusters are forming. Based on that visualization, okay, after you applied something, okay, min, max or average. So you can able to see output, your cluster output, okay. So based on that cluster output, you can conclude, right? Okay, for my problem statement, okay, min is best one, or max is best one, or average is best one. Like that only you can decide. We can't say directly this min works well for this data, this max is works for this point. Okay, it depends on your data set.
Okay,
Yeah.
right, got it.
Yeah. Is there any other questions?
Not from my side.
So I think why today actually I will teach only practical Python kind of things because why today I took the theoretical session is because my other TS they have given the practical knowledge. Okay,
Hmm.
then I came to know that there are few questions you are asking on some fundamentals about this clustering technique. That's why I concentrated on this session more about this fundamentals and basics. Okay, because all these SEA, SSEs and distance matrix computations, it will be there, okay, in your NPTEL lecture video and other TSR they have discussed. But still, some people are asking some fundamental questions or basic questions. That's why I took this theoretical explanation about this clustering technique. So I have explained three techniques, three clustering techniques. There will be several techniques are there. So with the help of this knowledge, you can study other clustering techniques also. The basic funda, the basic idea is maybe similar only.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you
If
for the session, I guess.
yeah, yeah. Okay. If you don't have any questions, okay.
I don't
I'm
think
going to.
anybody else
Yeah.
is going
Yeah.
to ask any questions. So,
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Good night all.
thanks so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.